Okay, so in this video I'm painting this fantastic image that I got off Pixabay of a Norse god, and I just love the feathers, his well, it's not his costume but his clothing. Also there's some sort of a crown with a stone and metal work on there. His hair, he's set in some sort of like glacial looking valley. Everything is very cool looking, apart from some slightly warmer tones in his beard. Phenomenal beard, can't wait to paint that. And his skin tone, which so far, this is my first wash, I've rendered with a little bit of raw umber and a tiny bit of raw sienna in there. Just for you to know what I did, I wet the whole sheet. Then I dropped in some Cobalt Teal Blue. I'll show you that colour now. Cobalt Teal Blue, which is a lovely turquoise blue. Some of this Cobalt Teal Blue mixed with some Lunar Blue. They're both Daniel Smith colours. So I used a mix of those and let it all bleed, and while it was all wet I put some of that face colour in as well. So there is absolutely no hard definition at this point. It's all very soft. I did sort of drag out some white sort of tendrils using a thirsty brush like that through some of the colour, but I'm going to be doing a lot more with the white of the beard. I'll probably actually use a bit of acrylic gouache for that, but you can use any opaque white you like. I like to do that. So I'm going to continue on now. We're going to start to develop the face. What I find useful is posterizing my image, which helps me to see more clearly where the mid-tones, the light tones and the very dark tones are on my subject. So I've posterized this image, and as we can see it really shows us where the sort of darkness is under the hooded eye, under the brows. The brows are very strongly highlighted, nose highlighted, corner of the eye very dark, under the nose very dark. So what I'm going to do is, to make it easier for me to paint, I'm going to have my image horizontally like this, because I'm going to be painting my face horizontally as well. You can just see that. So there's the tip of the nose there, and I'm going to be wetting the whole face area and going a bit proud into the hair, so that when I do put the face colour in, it's got a nice border in which to sort of bleed out into nothing and form another soft transition. I don't want any hard transitions going from my face into the hair area. At this point I want to keep everything soft, keep all my options open. Before I start off, I'm just going to give my palette, my wells of paint, a bit of a spray. These are kept nice and moist in my Michelob palette. There it is. Yeah. Michelob palette. It's a Stay Wet palette. It's watercolour, and these paints have been in here for weeks. So I just give them a little blast to moisten them all up for the painting session ahead. My painting kit, I've always got a flannel, it's sort of terry towel in, a sort of hand flannel ready. Don't put fabric softener on these, because the fabric softener then will transfer onto your brushes, and it can, probably not immediately, but over time affect sort of the condition of your brushes, and maybe make them a bit more repellent to water. So just boil them and have them sort of, super absorbent. Okay. Right, so before we get going, I want to mix up some face colour. So I've got some raw umber. I'm going to mix up more than I need, so I've got plenty of it. Raw umber, tiny bit of Quinacridone Rose. That warms it up, see it's warming it up nicely there. This is about the consistency I want. It's not viscous, but it's not very runny. It's not dripping off my brush. Okay, I've got a size 4 brush right now. little bit more yellow, so I got some, any sort of mid yellow will do. I can't remember the name of this. It's a Roman Schmoll paint or something like Benzymidazole Yellow. Is a weird name. I'll put it in the link. And then a tiny speck of manganese blue. Just to sort of neutralise the orange a bit. Actually, sorry about this. No, I'm going to use French Ultramarine Blue instead. That's a bit better. Just sort of brings the sort of tone down a bit. I feel I need that to be a bit more pink. So some more... Oh, hell, done too much, right? Okay. Add a lot more water to that. See how easily you can put too much watercolour on, too much pigment in a watercolour mix? That is way too red. Right, I'm going to need to mix some more yellow in a separate part of the palette and mix, just drag a bit into that. And again, tiny bit of French Ultramarine Blue. Test this on a piece of paper, see what it's looking like. If it looks like a flesh colour, that's good. It's quite warm. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That'll do as a flesh tint. Always give a little test on a piece of scrap paper. Right, now I've got the colour ready. I'm going to use this small brush to wet the whole of the face. Very carefully. I want to make sure I'm keeping the outline accurate. And as I mentioned, wet way past where your skin colour is going to go, so that you'll have a soft transition and you won't get any hard flesh colour lines butting up into the hair, because the hair needs to be soft in most places. So there's the bridge of the nose going up into the brow. I'm taking a lot of care there. Making sure that I've moistened all of this area equally, and don't forget the ear. Don't worry about painting over previously painted areas. They may start to sort of reactivate a bit, but they shouldn't reactivate too much. Right, I'm going to dry that brush now. Take the excess moisture off there, because now what I want to do is wait about 30 seconds or more for this water to sink in, so that it's not going to be too runny, because then my placement of the flesh tone won't go too wild. And this is where waiting is the name of the game. See if I can catch the, see if you can see the shine there, can't you, on the paper? The water is still looking moist, and we need it to look moist. Okay, so first of all I'm going to drop in this very dark area in the eye and down the side of the nose and under the nose. And there's a darker area on the lower lip as well. As you can see, it is flaring a bit in places. That's okay, we'll sort that out in a minute. There's under the cheek there, there's quite a darkish bit there. The ear is very dark in the middle. Don't worry if it bleeds out, because we can suck some of that paint out with a thirsty brush in a moment. Again, wipe my brush so that when I pick up colour, it's not as wet as if I hadn't wiped my brush. For this, I'm looking at what's happening here. So I'm using this as my roadmap as to where I'm putting the pigment. And as I'm working with the paper and paint as they're drying, the flaring and bleeding should slow down. And if anything jumps out at me and looks a little bit too hard, I'm going to soften it off by using the brush. Because all on this top lip is going to be white whiskers. It's got quite a beard. There's a little bit of a cleft in the brow there. Again, if it bleeds, don't worry, we're going to be using a thirsty brush to soak up some of that bleed. Let's take some more flesh skin up into the area that's just under this sort of jewelled crown thing. Okay, now if I turn it on its side, see we got a face there now. A bit of a face emerging, still in the early stages yet. Okay, so with a thirsty brush, this is a flat, slim, a slim flat brush, watercolour brush. It's a size 4. It hasn't got a lot of bristles, it's a very fine tool, and it's nice for lifting out colour. It's quite surgical. So again, I'm looking at my roadmap and see, for example, here there's some highlights on that bit, that sort of knobble of the nose. There's a dark cleft and there's a white highlight on the rounded bit. Pale there, mid-tone there, dark there, bit pale there. So I'm just going to try and start carving in some areas that I think might do with a bit of it. After each lift, I'm rinsing my brush and I'm drying my brush on the cloth. So every time I'm doing that. Above here, there's definitely a highlight. You might need to press quite hard to lift the colour out. Now on the back of the ear, it's lighter, so I'm going to lift that out. Rinse my brush, dry my brush. There's a bit of a highlight on the brow nearest us, above the main eye. So I need to do that to separate the brow. There's like a cleft between his eyes, you know, where he's been frowning. And I want to get that separation in. That's jumping out at me, so I'll just soften that bit of dark there. Right, okay, looking good so far. Now I'm going to go back in with a smaller brush. Now this is a size 0 brush with, again, I'm going to moisten that brush, then I'm going to dry this on a cloth because I want very fine application of paint. Now as I've been talking and working, the paper's been drying, so when I put this in now, it shouldn't bleed so much as the last lot did. Bit of darker area in there. Dark there. Dark by the side of the mouth and under the lip. And again, we can always fine tune these patches of dark as we go along with the thirsty brush. I feel that's a little bit more defined now. Cleft there. Under the ear is a dark area as well. So face is starting to come a little bit now. I'm just going to add some more. It's quite strong cheekbone dark under there. Let's try and get that in. Show his battle-torn face. Yeah. And back in the eye again with much darker tone. Because every time I'm going back in with the same tone, as the paper's drying, it's looking darker than the previous one. Because what we'll be doing is we'll be doing just softening off that area there because that was catching my eye, and blending that up with a slightly moist brush, and I'm just softening away any hard edges that are jumping out to me right now with that size 0 brush. Now again, what we will be doing is we will be doing some wet on dry work finally. When this is all dry, we'll be doing wet on dry work to put some very detailed darks in, and they will have some hard edges to them. Whereas what we've got now, everything is still soft, even though the face is starting to form a little bit. Right, again with my thirsty brush, I'm just going to see if I need to lift out any highlights. Yes, here. And rinse each time, even though it's a little bit of paint, rinse each time. These are the sort of wrinkles on his face. Highlight there. Just going to form that curve beside the ear. And if your brush goes like that, with clean fingers, make sure your fingers aren't greasy or you've just been eating crisps or something. Make sure your fingers are always really clean because grease will go on your brush and wreck it. Squeeze that brush to get it like a chisel knife again, and then go in and reclaim that shape that was lost. Rinse, dry again. Just trying to form some of those nice scars he's got, or not scars, sorry, wrinkles, although there may be scars in amongst there as well. Had a bit more of the cheek showing down there. Right. Okay, I think I got enough of a shape for the face to sort of look believable now. I'm going to let it all dry. Just zoom out a bit. So that's where we are right now. Let's let everything dry, then we're going to do the hard features, the wet on dry features. Okay, everything is bone dry now, and I want to get some more detail in the eye, some stronger detail, as we can see here, these darker areas now. Okay, so I've mixed up same sort of mixture, which was raw umber, some Quinacridone Rose, and a little bit of French Ultramarine Blue, and that's the consistency of it. Okay, so I'm going to get these shapes in, and shapes is all they are. We can't really sort of see the eye as such. It's just dark patches of tone. And again, this dark area under the nose as well, and in the cleft. And there's a few breakaway pieces. And a dark area, bottom of the lip. There's some little dark patches in the cheek. And the ear, a much darker patch in there. And some darker areas up in the hairline and in the cleft of the brow, and up under that jewel thing there. There's more in the corner here, and then the sort of breakaway crease lines, you know, wrinkles. So now I've put those little chinks in. So now what I'm going to do is, with a slightly moist brush, which is a brush that's been moistened and then flicked, I flick the hairs on the rim of my plastic jug. And now I've got a slightly, ever so slightly moist brush. And this then is a blender, and it's going to blend all those little chinks I've put in very softly. I'm going to rinse and flick quite often, so that I'm controlling how much pigment is on the brush and how much water is on the brush as well, because I want to blend these little chinks in more softly in places, because right now they're totally hard edged and I just want them to soften up a little bit. So I'm dragging that shadow up and under the bottom of the nose. Rinse again, flick again. So with every little application of darker tone, I like to soften it in a little bit more to give depth to the face. I feel like that needs to come down there a bit more. Yep. I'm doing some dry brushing as well in places. With dry brushing is when there's practically no moisture in the brush, yet it still moves the paint a little bit. I'm going to go back into the eye and place a little bit more dark where I sense the front of the eye is. And again, some trailing creases and wrinkles, and again a re-accent under the nose, the nostril, in amongst that dark tone. And some very fine tapering lines to suggest hair cutting over the ear. I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. Just a little bit more on the tip of the nose. Okay. Right, let's zoom out a bit, see how that's looking. Okay, so I'm going to pause there a second. Right, now in order to just finish the eye, I've got a tiny, it's probably 4mm flat brush, very slim, and I'm going to cut out, there's a tiny little chink, see that tiny little triangular chink there? Now, that's brought his eye to life a little tiny bit. And a little chink where the tear duct is. So he's brought his eye to life just by adding the little bits of the whites of the eyes that we can see. I'm just going to retouch up the front of the eyeball there, which is dark. There. Okay, so I feel now he's like got a bit of an expression. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to moisten my brush a little bit more. flick it so it's a clean moist brush and just soften some of those lines inside the ear down a bit because they're looking a bit hard. I'm softening those darks and letting them blend over a bit to make that rounded feel on the outer ear shape. So this is very fine-tune work, and this is where you get your nice soft facial details. This is bothering me here. It's too hard. So I'm just going to soften that down and blend it back. Rinse my brush, flick my brush, and then soften that out. Right, okay. Right, I'm going to leave the face for now and start work on the shoulder feathers. So to start on the feather shapes, I'm going to make a mix of French Ultramarine Blue, I'll mix quite a bit up, try and do about 3 feathers. So French Ultramarine Blue and some burnt Sienna. It's a nice sort of inky blue there. I'm using a size 4 round brush. So I'm going to get this colour on. Cut in right under that one feather there. I'm aiming to have it alternating in places light against dark, and I'm leaving a little bit of a spine for the feather. This is a bit of contrast. Trying to get some fine tips on that. I'm looking at this image, which is the grayscale version of it, and as you can see it's quite a pale feather, this one. So what I'm going to do is now take out some more colour using, this is like a size 6, probably 1/2 inch roughly flat brush, moistening it very well. Really moisten it, and I'm going to dry it on a flannel, and now I'm going to cut away the pale areas that I can see in my grayscale. So let's cut that spine down even more, reclaim that. You can't usually do more than 2 lifts like this without having to rinse your brush, otherwise you're just going to be putting colour back in on top. Redoing the spine there because it's very pale in the grayscale. Cutting in dragging back inwards, cutting in. And you've got to do this, as soon as you lay the colour down, you've got to do the cutting in and the lifting out straight away. Otherwise the paint dries too hard and fixes into the paper and is a devil to lift out. So you've got to do this work really quickly. To get some contrast. So that it says feather. It's a lot darker under there, so I'm going to come in that dark bit. Where it's coming out from under that other feather is dark, so I'll just do a few lines now of contrast. And then a few darker pieces. I'm not always following the grayscale. If I feel a bit lost, I'll follow it, but a lot of the time I just like to go with the feel of what I can sense in my subject. So that it's not too stylized. I'm really letting the tip of my brush do some lovely fine feathering on the edge of this, feather. Right, so I think that's happy with how that's looking. Right, so leaving that one to dry now. Come along. Let's do one of these over here. And again, you can either choose to carve in your spine as you're doing it, or lift it out really quickly once you've got the paint on. Now with this feather, it's sort of cascading down amongst the white sort of locks of his hair, so I'm cutting those in. In places. So that the hair's got somewhere to escape to. And then here there's quite a few feathers overlapping. So I'm just going to turn my board on its side, so it's going to be easier for me to paint these. Get them in. And paint them in the direction in which they flow or go. aiming to have a broken or soft edge where they blend in with the hair, so that when we're doing the hair we can they can dovetail together a bit better than if it was a solid black line that they're meeting. We'll be fine-tuning these as well, so I haven't got to be perfect at this stage. Just want to create that feeling of the shoulder feathers, which is quite a lovely element to the painting. His cape appears to be made of feathers, so I'm blocking in these shapes. Now that's his hair there flowing, and then this is like the shoulder of his cape. It's like a bird's wing almost. Again, I'm going to use different widths with my brush so that I haven't got a solid block of colour, which will allow me to blend if I need to blend anything more when I do more work on the feathers. Oops, that's much. I'm going back in to create some differentials in tone. Now, where it's going off the page, I do want it a little bit stronger in places to add some solidity to that cape. Oh. Under here now there's another raft of feathers which form a different part of the cape. So I'm going to be dropping these in very loosely because they are underpinning everything and they don't need as much detail. And again, try and alter the size and the width of them. Sorry, that was a little bit off camera. Just alter the size and the width of them for interest. And these are just organic shapes now with not much detail. We just know that they're feathers continuing on. Creating a little bit of a soft, dark underpinning. Right, as I'm coming in here now, this area, again, this is an underpinning area, so I don't need a lot of detail in here. Darker where it emerges from under the main cluster of feathers, and then it can get softer and paler as it expands out into the main cluster. So this is how it's looking now. I'll just show you. So we're sort of building this cape freely and with directional strokes, you know, so they help us see the feathers. Leave some breaks in the passages of blue. Now as I'm coming over to the beard, I'm going to soften the paper with clear water, so that when I do some darks in amongst the feathers, that dark will be a soft edged dark. So for example, under here now, I'm just going to put some loose strokes. Rinse my brush, flick it and moisten that away, so that when we do the white for the beard and the hair, it'll blend softly. Just a bit of dark curly stuff here. I'm using the tip of my brush to get a very fine curve. Zoom in on that. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and let all that dry, and then finish off any remaining bits and just see how I feel about how the tone is looking, whether I need to go darker in some places, you know, compared to my posterized grayscale. But I've got sort of the bulk of the work done there now.